Hello, my name is Stephen Diorio. I'm author of the book Revenue Operations, and I'll be one of the co-chairs of the upcoming Customer Experience Strategy Summit in Toronto in late May, the 28th and 29th. We wanted to do a webinar to preview the incredibly important agenda we have planned for you. There are so many dynamics going on in the world of customer success and customer experience, and I've brought together several leaders in the field to really preview why this conference is so important, what we're going to be talking about, and share some best practices and key issues that almost anybody in the field needs to be addressed. So I'd like to start with Mohammed. Mohammed is a very progressive customer success manager for Oracle. Why don't you introduce yourself, Mohammed, and just kind of give some context as to what you're going to bring to the conversation today.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephen. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. My name is Mohammed Alqaq. I'm based in Jordan, and I'm a customer success manager working with Oracle. I've been in the customer-facing role for the last 20 years. I've been involved in multi-regions, multi-practices organization, and I've done customer success before it becomes a title or it becomes a word or a trend. For me, customer success is a passion, and I'm looking at the whole customer success journey as a journey where you drive success and drive satisfaction to your customer that will end up with growing the business on all sides. I've started the customer success community in the Middle East 2 years ago, or almost 3 years ago, just to empower and advance the customer success practice and professionals in the region.
Dynamite. Michael, I've known you for years now. I regard Michael as one of the smartest folks in the field. No knock on anyone else, including me, I guess. But Michael, why don't you introduce yourself? You bring a broader perspective, which is incredibly relevant to our agenda here. You've got certainly a great customer success background, but now you've been given more of the full revenue cycle and more resources to that end. Why don't you talk a little bit?
Sure. I'm Michael Marchand. I'm based in Austin, Texas, although I'm from New York originally. Currently, I'm at a $3 billion business services organization that has the pleasure of serving retailers and consumer products around the world, including North America and in Canada. We try and deliver services that clients ask us to do in terms of outsourcing, helping them augment their growth and their marketing, and truly trying to bridge the intersection between retail and consumer. Prior to that, I was a SaaS executive at WP Engine, where I ran revenue operations, and then had multiple executive stints at Dell, as well as at Deloitte Consulting. Helped build the customer success and chief customer office at Dell. And really philosophically, what I'm hoping to bring to the dialogue is, how do you think about it in the macro? How do you get it sold into your own business? How do you, Mohammed's going to talk about where you start. I'm going to help you guys. How does it bridge internally? How do we make it real and valued in the business? Because these conversations are not just happening in tech. I have clients that are actively trying to think through, how do I bring those practices into their organization? How do I get it to be real and meaningful? I am an analytic, so I love data. I love AI. I love the power of some of the things that it can do. However, it's an augmentation, not a replacement for human connection. And I think that that's part of what we're going to talk about here, as well as in Toronto, is how do you bridge these worlds that are coming and make it so that the client gets their outcome, you're fairly easy to do business with as an organization, and your AI and your people aren't seen as jerks. Because if you do those three things well, you're going to be successful.
Well, that's great, Michael. What I bring to the party is I'm an engineer and an architect like Mohammed. I am passionate about engineering the revenue cycle. I think the time has come. I founded MarketBridge, the first go-to-market strategy firm, back when I had a beautiful frock of hair like Michael. And then we're talking the 90s. I was the first sales and marketing analyst at Gartner in the 90s, which was way too soon. But I guess I've talked to thousands of executives on how to transform the commercial model. And I've written a book on this very topic. The first question, actually, is customer success and customer service merging with front of the funnel marketing, sales, and product functions to drive growth? That's my book, Revenue Operations. And that is actually our first question. So the first question is, this is the modern revenue cycle. In SaaS, but in all businesses, industrial, complex engineering firms, there's really no difference between functions anymore. Marketing, product create demand, sales and key account accelerate the pipeline, customer success, customer experience, customer service, call it what you will, bring up the back end. And to be honest, this is a loop, and we all know that, but this is a much better picture. Our first question is, okay, actually, I used ChatGPT and AI and said, what's the difference between customer service, customer experience, and customer success? And shockingly, they were splitting hairs. There are no differences. In fact, the customer success service associations are renaming themselves customer experience. All three functions are becoming proactive, revenue generating, full funnel, AI enabled, digitally enabled. It's really the same thing. Let's talk about how this happens in a real organization like Oracle and the ones you're working with. Obviously, there's silos, politics, incentives, different teams, lack of coordination, different systems. But how are these coming together? Because this is a real focus of our forum. I guess, Mohammed, why don't you start off by telling a story about how you're doing this day to day in 6 accounts?
Yeah, so thank you, Stephen, for the intro and for the question. I believe customer success, or CX, the customer experience, whether it's success or experience or service or support or whatever, it's all have the same ultimate goal. And when I look at it, customer success is a philosophy, is a company-wide philosophy. And each one of those departments, even marketing, even sales, even support, implementation, whatever department within the company should take that philosophy and build their own methodology on how they're gonna drive and deliver success for their customers, aligning with the company philosophy. And then when you reach to that level where each department has their own methodology on how they're gonna deliver and drive more success, there need to be some alignment between the teams while they start to align their goals so they can go with one message to the customer. Customer doesn't like to have different messages from different teams. But if you align, and if you align your methodology to a philosophy that, the ultimate goal of that philosophy is driving customer success and driving more value to your customer, then you will unify your messages to the customer. Moving down the road, when you start to work with customers, you need to build that pod, that structure where you have one rep of each department to create a customer team where they together put a framework that they're going to deliver for that customer based on the methodology they have, based on the philosophy that is a company-wide philosophy. Then we can reach to the level where we are driving more success. We are all working towards one goal, that we want to grow the business, we want to drive more success, and we want to make sure our customer is satisfied. It's not anymore selling features and functions. It's selling value and driving more value. So the team needs to work on what value and what success means to the customer in order to drive and to build that framework where everyone has a piece to deliver towards that goal.
So to make this real for everybody, when this webinar is over, you're going to join one of 6 teams, each with millions of dollars of revenue and thousands of clients, in collaboration with people from sales, product, and other parts of your company. Can you talk about, practically one of those teams and what that looks like in your day-to-day life?
Because the customer success, or once the post-sales start or the post-sales implementation start, the customer success will overlap that phase. And here where the customer success will play the role of the maestro. He will start to orchestrate the relation. He will start to orchestrate the internal team creation and team engagement and build that framework for the customer. Now, that overlap will give an opportunity for the customer success to start to coordinate internally and drive and being more proactive dealing with the customer. Down the road, the customer success manager will be the person who will orchestrate all the relation with the customer. Sales will remain a reactive person just to discuss the commercial things. Support will remain reactive. Marketing will not interact a lot with the customer. But when that team is bound together and the customer success is orchestrating all the relation between those groups or those teams with the customer, you will start to get feedback and feed it back to the team, where we start to elaborate further and work together in order to deliver back to the customer and drive more success. So the customer will not work with the 6 people at the same time. There is one person, most probably, or most of the time, the customer success and the sales are in interaction with the customer most of the time. The rest of the team, they are reactive when needed and if needed.
Fantastic.
But again, they are part of the team and they are always aware of what's going on, so that if something happened, they know where they are, what we have delivered, where we are so far with the customer, and they can jump in and start to work with the customer immediately without wasting time to go to the customer and start asking again, how you do this, how you do that, because that's a waste of time and the customer will not welcome that over the time.
Wow. So we're going to unpack how your teams work as we go along. I want to get to Michael here. But I think one of my big takeaways is customer success becomes proactive because they're the ones talking most of the time. And an orchestrator and sales and support actually become reactive. Later on, I like how product becomes more proactive in terms of cross-sell usage and releases in your model. So I think that whole notion of who's proactive and who is responding and who's the straw that stirs the drink and who's following up to meet the customer, super fascinating. Michael, you have a point of view about how customer service, success, experience, sales and marketing, product will all come together. Why don't you give us your perspective?
Well, I think the first place, and I'm kind of building on Mohammed's point, clients want trust. And one of the ways to build trust is to have somebody they can call, right? At some point, we all don't want to sit on hold. We want someone who can relate to us, have the empathy and the like. What I've seen is as you do that, clients will give you signals. They will give you opportunities where it isn't just fix my problem, but, bump something I bought, but they'll start bringing up things that are tangential or connected to what they're trying to do and asking questions. Oftentimes you can have people who are smart. WP Engine was great at this. Their customer support team is amazing. Being able to identify, oh, wait a minute, you're about to use up your capacity in terms of the volume of business you're having on the site. Let me get you over to somebody who can help you get more capacity, save you money because you don't get overcharges. That little loop that I just described, right, has data signals in it. It has trust. It has that moment where you're doing right by the customer and you're doing right by the company. And that is critical as you move forward with kind of this success model. The moment that the client feels that you are doing something to service yourself or to service your company only, you're in deep trouble. It's all about trying to make that win-win between what's good for your organization, what's good for you, what's good for your client. And it's personal. It's not just thinking about it as an account. A lot of times we talk about things as accounts, right? but each person's an individual. They're having whatever's going on in their lives, you want to understand it. Now, the flip side of it is the beauty of having customer success is we can collect that information. We can document it, put it into tools, allow us to see patterns. Those patterns frame into things that can go back to product, right? It's interesting to bring one complaint from one customer when it's, hey, I'm looking at your adoption statistics and no one's adopting this feature. And here's why. You get people leaning in, because I've never met an engineer that doesn't want to build something that someone else wants to use. And so you're constantly thinking through the lens of not only how do I add value to my client, but how do I add value to my revenue, and then the people that I'm working with across pieces. The other piece is, and we were talking about this before the call, is making sure that that team that Mohammed talked about is connected, that you're not being dysfunctional in front of the client. They don't care. They don't care about your politics. They don't care about your job title. They don't care what level you are. They care that, the brand is coming in to solve the issue. And as you build that trust, right, that trust doesn't have to be hoarded by one person. You may spread across a team. And people like that, right? They want to feel like both the CS as well as the client want to see the organization have their back.
Well, let's just talk a little bit about that team. I want to share some statistics. Many of the progressive organizations I have customer success part of a key account team with sales and things called pods, or what Mohammed's doing. A recent survey of thousands of customer success professionals said they are collaborating with all sorts of different departments. 50% are collaborating with marketing on things like account-based marketing, allocating messaging and materials to the end of the funnel. 32% are collaborating with product, as Michael pointed out, and Mohammed has product on his team, and they do an amazing job about sharing releases, getting client feedback, making them feel like they're part of the product roadmap. 35% collaborate with support, and again, the difference between customer success and support, very nebulous, and 32% are collaborating with RevOps, and that makes a lot of sense because the number one obstacle to customer success is getting the resources to build the systems to support the digital experience. And again, that's RevOps. This whole picture in my mind is RevOps, at least the way we wrote the book. But I want to come back to you, Michael. When I first discussed this webinar with you, you said, well, the answer is kind of easy. There's three things that matter: upsell, risks, and lessons from COVID. Could you just talk a little bit about, what it's all about?
Yeah. So let's think about what's going on in the world right now. We have a lot of uncertainty. And I can tell you businesses don't like uncertainty. In particular, CFOs don't like uncertainty, right? And that creates a pressure. And that pressure starts to build in the business to start justifying what you're doing, right? And it can be healthy and powerful. As I think about the world we have right now, the first question, if I'm a senior executive right now, is where are my risks, right? Because the other problem with this level of uncertainty is everyone uses history as a guide, but history only works when things are fairly stable. When you have more and more uncertainty, it is more difficult to use history to predict risk. So this is where CS can have a huge opportunity to really highlight where are their risks, right? The risks can be to our business in terms of our revenue and our margin, could be risks for our clients in terms of how they have to handle a situation. But how do we use CS, and how do the CS professionals really create that moment of risk? This is also where partnering with RevOps, as you mentioned, is really critical, right? Many people try and do customer health score modeling and those types of things, and they're awesome. I also am going to steal from a friend at CXS, and they just simply started a program called Just Ask Me. And so literally just going and asking clients, what are your future plans for my product? Sometimes you're going to like the answer where we want to do more. We want to keep where we are. Sometimes you're going to hear you're going to hear something you may not want to hear, but at least and you can start working towards how do I take that person who may leave me and turn that back to where I need to be. The second piece is really around how do you do right by the client and your business in terms of identifying upsell and cross-sell, right? The economics of the client, right? They have pressure on their income statement. That's just reality, right? I've seen cases, I've seen it done at Dell and other places where we can have a twofer. I can sell you more of what I'm doing, and I can actually improve your productivity. I can improve your cost structure. I can do things like that, right? Where it's in their interest to, achieve the goals they're given, right? I got to take down my costs. I got to be more productive, while also you are able to upsell and cross-sell more. But that has to be a very thoughtful, logical motion. It has to come from a place of trust and thinking about where you're trying to go, not just to survive next month, but where do you want to have that client be in 18 months? Because there's that moment where the last bit on economic uncertainty and COVID's happening. We have clients right now that are struggling with the tariffs. It is a hard thing in the US and in Canada right now. We understand that. There are moments where it's more important to us to maybe give them some of the things we did during COVID, economic relief, maybe an additional service. Maybe we do a free diagnostic. We do something that helps their business that, we can do. It maybe not be a huge lift for us, but enough that it adds value to them and gets them through this hard time. On the flip side of it, nothing's free. I don't believe in giving stuff away. And, there should be commitment on the other side, because I will always tell you, the moment where there's challenge and hardship and pain, people remember. This trust thing is real, and people will hold on to that story when COVID hit. I got laptops in 24 hours, or something else happened and you were with me. That story sticks, and it creates a reservoir of goodness that you have to go through. And that's the opportunity I see in this level of uncertainty, is that how can I help you get through this moment? Because many organizations are in pain.
Yeah. Just to add to that, Michael, in terms of mitigating risk and having a health scoring system, I believe the health scoring system is not a customer success thing. It's not a customer success only KPI. Health scoring should be coming from sales, from support, from marketing, from implementation, from support, from CSM. And then you combine all those metrics or results to come up with a unified scoring system that will give you a lot more information than if it's coming only from the CSM. Because, marketing has a good chunk of that scoring system, because, it gives you an indication if the customer is responding to surveys, if they are attending webinars, if they are attending workshops, if they are watching some of the videos that you have on your website. That elements will help you to understand whether the customer is interested to do more, to develop, or whatever. Support is the same. The number of service requests, the type of the service request, the frequency of the service request, and those will give you a different level of understanding where your customer is. Then combine everything together, you will have a better integrated health scoring system that will tell you a better story about your customer.
I love that, Mohammed. Two things I try and do in organizations. I try and rewrite how they do their internal scorecards, because most of the time people start with their funnels and what the revenue's coming in. And about halfway down the page, there's kind of the health score and the metrics and all that kind of stuff. I've been in organizations where you flip it. The first thing you see is your NPS or your health score. Then you see your churn. You see your risks. The most important thing I've learned is things are going to happen. We're going to have red moments, bad moments. The way to win is, yes, you have to deal with those. It's the yellows and the limes, if I can call them that, where you can get in early. So typically I like to actually say okay, if I get 5 trouble tickets, I know my client's going to leave me. Well, I don't want to know it at 5. That doesn't help anybody, right? The customer's already in pain. It's, quite frankly, in many cases too late. Let's get the signal so it's set up at 2 or 3, where I have time. Or there's been scenarios where I've been in where, we see a problem. The client hasn't noticed it yet. not only do we fix the problem, but we tell them we fixed the problem. Because it's one of the other gaps I find with a lot of products, right? Which is, if it's all working fine, it's like an insurance policy. Don't call me if it's not breaking, right? People forget the value then, right? Part of CS's job is that proactivity you mentioned, and the ability to say, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I'll use tech for the example, like, we've blocked 17 intrusions in the last 2 weeks for you, right? You never would have seen it, you wouldn't know about it, but we just want to let you know we've got your back, and that's how we run. Because that's, again, it builds trust. It says we're here. We're not disturbing you in the sense of like asking for another meeting or making you do more work. We're just saying, hey, you made a good purchase. Let me show you how you made your good purchase. And it builds that equity up as you keep going.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, let's drive ahead. My next question is about the customers, and the question really is, how are you adapting to changing customer behavior, demographics, and preferences for digital engagement? And the intuitive answer has always been, well, demographic, Gen Z and millennials, 90% of them don't want to deal with a human. They love chatbots. They grew up on video games. Boomers want to go by phone and talk to a human. But Mohammed, you said it's more than that. It's almost about the maturity of the customer. You talked about how the complexity of the engagement, the solution, their job matter, and there are personas. Leave me alone, Larry. Hold my hand, Harry. Can you guys both talk about, everyone's using AI and digital assistants? Everyone's obviously, I got the stats, 90% of organizations and customer service reps are experimenting with this. They're super excited about chatbots. And in fact, adoption has been pretty real. But what's the difference? How do you look at them like a human being and say, how does this person want to be treated and what's appropriate?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Stephen, I believe that to adopt change and the change of customer behavior, it always depends on your product, the complexity of your product, the maturity of your customer, and the level of their usage. If your application or if your solution is a web app that it's for individual, I don't think you need that. It's not that complex, and you don't need a lot of that engagement and human engagement and an interaction, because it's simple. You learn it for the first time. If they have an online adoption or online onboarding tool, you can just go through the onboarding steps and you are good to go. But if it is complex, if you have a very comprehensive project, you have a huge team, then that automated onboarding will not work. And down the road, nothing automated will work, because those people, they need more of an interaction, a human interaction, so you can hear and you can deliver the value they are looking for. Because they bought the software or they bought the solution for a purpose, for delivering their projects or their work. If your software doesn't do that, even if you have the best features in the world, but it doesn't drive success for them to allow them to drive and deliver their projects, then they don't need it. So you have to do that interaction, you have to do that engagement to understand their value, to understand their objectives and goals, and start to work with them to deliver against those goals. And so being flexible as an organization and implement a flexible channel for communication and an interaction and engagement, it's really important, because still within those mature companies and complex organization, you still have those Gen Z that they don't care about talking to anyone. They just, on their mobile, they need to log a ticket and done. But you get someone on my age that, I prefer somebody to give me a call, because I still like that interaction with human.
So
could I just, some of the lessons I learned from you, which were profound, is that were counterintuitive. Beginners might be happy with a digital automated experience, but power users who are deep in the weeds and really want to know the product roadmap may actually require human interactions. If the product is complex, and I'd say, Mohammed, you're doing incredibly complex, solutions for engineering and services firms, that's going to require human. A lot of the prevailing wisdom is everyone's got a really simple thing, Adobe Illustrator or just how to turn a switch on. You had mentioned, are their goals unique? You don't think about transactions. You're thinking about, there are no standard KPIs. Every client has unique goals. If their goals are unique and bespoke, that requires users. You also said champions require human contact. The average user may be digital. But we also looked at learning styles. Visual learners like me, I'm a cartoonist. I drew this cartoon. Visual learners are going to need maybe different types of things. Book learners may go to the manual and actually learn on their own. So I think, I thought it was, like you said, Gen Z, but there's all sorts of different behavior models. Michael, I cut you off, and I want to make sure that you chime in here.
Sure. What I was going to say is pretty aligned with what Mohammed said. I think you have two different things you got to deal with. One is, what's the use case? So I've put in like AI chatbots for things like, and didn't even tell the customer, reset a password. I've never met anyone who likes to reset passwords. It's a very transactional thing you have to do. The more efficient it is, the better. The easier to do it, the better, right? And most people don't even notice when they're dealing with an AI chatbot at that point, right? A more complex use case is, how do I get more value out of what I'm doing? How do I take that complex thing and get through it? So that's one piece of it. And you have to think about the literacy of of people on technology. When you look at the demographics, to me, that's a literacy question. I have an 80-year-old father who is fairly geekaloid, probably knows more about tech than I do, because he finds it interesting, and that's just how his brain works, right? But he might be the 1 out of 10, right, in that group. I think what really comes back to is, what's the enablement look like? How do you make it so it's easy for people not to be afraid? Because most people their fear is they're going to break something. That is the fear, right? And how do you overcome that with training, making it easier and easier for them to use the technology and to free it up? The other piece to this is always this kind of triangle, right, of our accounts, right? We put all the people at the top, and then we kind of sprinkle a little in the middle, and then by the end, we're like, oh, we'll just do digital. I think AI is helping us to rethink that model quite a bit, right? Where there's digital things we should be doing at the top of that pyramid, right? Resetting passwords. We don't need people doing that, right?
Yeah.
But as you go down that pyramid, how many people on the phone think about this? How many times has a mid-sized customer said to you, I'll give you business if I could have a single point of contact? And you go back into the office and you have an argument about whether you can afford it or not. I think AI changes the way that we think about this so that we can cover more accounts in different ways to provide that trust, that human experience, balancing it in. I have my cartoon up, and this is the dilemma that I see in most organizations. CXOs are sitting there knowing they're getting uncertainty. Every minute you hear about energetic something or other. And how do I know I'm going to win? Because it's murky, right? There's a lot of change in the world. How do I figure it out? You've got CS going, how do I keep score? How do I help the organization and my clients understand how are we doing? And how do we win? What are the things we can do? As you think about it in our little Star Trek theme here, you have AI or RevOps, right? You've got a Spock, is like the way I think about it. And Spock had emotions, but he was also incredibly analytical, and bringing that information sets together so we make better and better decisions, right? The right decision may be for those mid-sized customers to put a single point of contact with them, right? But there's also an expectation that 70% of the time you're not going to need that person because our automation, our toolkit will be there and effective. The other piece that I think is incredibly important with AI that we often overlook is, and we're doing this right now with some of the stuff we work on, you can embed AI into the product, the experience from day one. You can think about it differently so that those adoption things that are hard rather than you calling someone up after the meeting going, I didn't get that right, that doesn't work. You can build your product so that AI helps them to get through that process. And I think that's the mindset shift we're going through, which is, I asked Mohammed before the call, is AI a tool or is it a teammate? And he answered it's a teammate. And I think that was a very interesting answer.
Well, could I talk about this? So this is a kind of a holy war. The pendulum obviously is swung very hard over to AI. But again, there's a backlash for human engagement. Let me kind of put both ends of the pendulum here. So in terms of AI, 90% of customer success organizations fund themselves, measure themselves on scale and effectiveness. 73% or more of success, service, and customer experience professionals are rapidly using AI. The statistics show that investment in digital CX and digital transformation is going to the moon. And the economics here are transaction economics. I can take a $100 human interaction and turn it into a very inexpensive AI interaction through a chatbot. People are in love with it. And yes, this works really well with hard skills, numbers, data, and digital. But on the human end of the continuum, as technology gets more complex and sophisticated, 82% of humans, customers, are saying that I'm going to want more human interaction as AI becomes more sophisticated. 70% of the customer experience is defined as how it makes you feel. To quote, Maya Angelou, people don't remember what you did or what you know, but they remember how you made them feel. How good is AI at that? There's research that says emotional connections can increase customer lifetime value by hundreds of percent. Soft skills are the differentiator. 73% of customers, with all that investment in digital CX, which is what this webinar is about, 73% of B2B customers don't see the difference between company A and B. So maybe it's not differentiating. In fact, most of them don't think, half, 43%, don't think the customer experience is all that good. And so on the human side of the equation, I have analog skills, emotions, trust, empathy, relationship building, nonverbal communication, authenticity, recognition, listening, and I think I mentioned empathy. Can AI, how do you play this thing? Because can AI today do those things, or are those uniquely human, emotional things? You even said, if you really want to differentiate your firm, just say thank you. 70% of people view themselves as being grateful, including customer service and sales reps, but most of them don't even say thank you. So maybe the pendulum swinging back to a more human relative to AI is the answer. Obviously, it's much more granular than that. But Mohammed and Michael, why don't you chime in on how we should think about this pendulum and how you pick your spots?
Okay, so I think more and more we're going to see AI is getting bigger and better and getting used more and more. But AI will excel in one side of the whole cycle of engagement and interaction with the customer. There are few things that AI, I don't think it will ever replace that human interaction when it comes to like a business value discussion. That's something AI will never do. You will need that human touch and human interaction with the customer in order to discuss this. There is a problem, a complex problem that you want to solve. AI, yes, a chatbot will take you from A to B to C to D, but that will not fix the problem because you need to talk to the customer to understand, to better investigate and for further investigate the issue they have in order to fix it for them. Relationship building, part of the soft skills we are excel doing is the relationship building. AI will not build that relation with the customer, and customer will not build that relation with the AI. Escalation, strategic discussion or strategic account planning, contract negotiation, those are things, I don't think AI will replace them. So that's the human touch. AI can replace all that routine automation or automated tasks that you keep repeat day after day, and you don't want to waste time doing that. You can do it. AI will help you, and that's why I said it's a teammate, because AI will work with you in order to drive those automated tasks or routine tasks for the customer day after day. That's my opinion.
So I have a deep fascination with time, because it's the one thing I don't have more of. And I think that when you take the statistics you kind of you just said, Steve, I don't think they're opposing, in my opinion. I think they're actually linked. I think that the curiosity of humans, the interest in what can the AI do for me, how can it make me smarter, make me more efficient, make me learn something I didn't know, is really powerful. Right? At the same time, we're emotional creatures. Over 50% of B2B decisions are made on emotions, not numbers or logic, right? And AI will slowly but surely kind of fake emotions and some transactional things. But there's a moment, especially post-COVID with people working remotely, that sense of I can look you in the eye, I can feel you in the room, that you can't fake. And I think that the AI helps both the client and the business or the individuals to spend less time on things that are less valuable, and also point out things that are critical. One of the things that we see a lot now is our clients are allowing us more and more to record calls, right? This is one of the struggles, right? Privacy, security. Are people comfortable letting you record calls? And we have structures and things to say when we are allowed to do and when we're not. What I found is the clients, once they realize that they're going to get a better meeting note faster and quicker to action via AI, they come to like it and see it as a teammate and welcome it in the room. In addition to that, AI can help people see patterns they don't normally see. There's companies like Gong or Chorus that allow you to really look at the way we interact with folks. One of my favorite things that I learned from a sales leader in one of my businesses was he started a call about trying to use this technology. And he said, I'm going to teach you when it's appropriate to swear in front of your customer. And everyone's eyes picked up because it was unexpected. And he said, look, I've looked at the data. Here's what happens. Once the customer swears in front of you, and then you swear, your likelihood of winning your deal goes up by 5 times. If you swear first, your likelihood of losing the deal goes up 10 times. And so that little instance, right, of that, meeting the customer where they want to be is not something we would have been able to tease out in drive-bys or peer reviews or anything else. AI had to find that little nugget. But all of a sudden, my adoption rates of using that technology went through the roof, because everyone else is like, what else can we do? What else? And I think I always think about the AI piece of this is start within your 4 walls to begin with. Use it internally, learn from it, grow from it, then start exposing it to your clients as you go through it. You're going to have to do this. It's part of the way we go. I do think, again, that use case and what literacy the individuals have is incredibly important to understand and, quite frankly, document, because it gets you smarter. And the more we're smarter, the more the organization, not just the individuals, can treat that person with the respect they deserve.
Well, we want to get some questions in, but let's wrap it up. The whole reason we're doing this is to make money. We're not, this is not altruism. And a lot of what you're talking about, guys, is very intangible, soft skills. Yes, the transaction economics work, but customer health, customer equity, relationship equity, brand equity, and preference, those are all intangible assets that, by the way, probably make up more than half the value of a company like Oracle. Can you guys talk about the importance of a business case? I mean, Mohammed, you're on a team with people from key accounts and product. Why are they even spending time on the call? Are they being paid? Do you guys have a KPI? Do you acknowledge that this customer is worth $100 million and it's worth spending that type of time? How do you build incentives? How do you invest in the technology that we've been talking about to do this? How do you create a business case that forces executives to collaborate? People do things for money more than a lot of other things. So let's talk about, on a practical level, the business case here. And Mohammed, can you kind of, whether it's overt, tacit, quantified, or not, what's your view on the business case for what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I believe, to build a business case that can be, acceptable and can be invested in, is to focus on the value creation. We need, or CS or CX, they need to demonstrate that the initiatives drive drive tangible value to the customer through several things. Increase the customer retention, upselling, market expansion, etc. We need also to quantify the business impact. The correlation between the customer experience improvements and the revenue growth within the account. We need to, when we build the business model, we look also at the strategic advantage of having that model where we have a team or a group or invest in technology to deliver more value to our customers. So it's really about focusing on business outcome rather than the technical capabilities that we can deliver or drive to our customer.
Michael, what's your view? I think you said something profound, like if you can't make a business case, you should find another job, I think.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Look, this to me is pretty straightforward. Businesses is about, once you have a client or a customer, it's about retention. It's the first job. How does retention happen? The client has to get to their outcome. You need to be not too painful to do business with. People can't be jerks, right? The way you can quantify that is look at your retention rates or your loyalty rates, because every business I've been around, where the struggle comes in is the short term versus the medium term. I don't use the word long term anymore in business because it's too hard for people. There's no such thing. But it's that balancing act of understanding, yeah, I got to make my number today, but am I setting myself up for the future? Because what investors care about is, and if you really understand investing, is the future cash flow you're going to generate. That's what they're betting on, and that's what they want to see. So I like seeing people and business cases that go directly to, this is how we think retention is going to happen. This is specifically how it's going to add value to the client. This is how it's going to add value to our business. I like seeing things that are from SaaS, like net retained revenue or gross retained revenue. I quite frankly like paying customer success people on that, because then it gives that, but without dictating it has to be bring your churn rate down or do this or that, giving them the freedom of, hey, you've got a pod or a cluster of clients, grow them effectively so we make money, not just today, but in the future. The business cases have to come back to what's real and I can point to it, right? I can only manage what I measure, right? Especially in this remote world and in these places. And so the ability to track data, understand it, how does it really do things, can open up a world of opportunities for businesses. And as my dad I'm a son of a CFO, my general view on business cases is triple the cost, half the benefit. If you still make money, it's a good idea. So that's the practical wisdom from my dad, and I kind of follow that through. Just if it's 3 times more expensive and you cut the benefit in half, do you make money? Great, go do it, because you're going to win most of the time. I think
well, let's the reason we're here, this is just foreshadowing the agenda of why this event, Customer Experience Strategy Summits in Toronto on May 28th and 29th, is so important. The finance piece, again, Michael, sorry for cutting you off, is critically important. Michael said 3 critical things. The value of your business, according to Wall Street and the people who buy your stock or the private equity people, is your ability to generate future cash flow. In my book, Revenue Operations, we create a revenue value chain that is a financial model that explains every action in this phone call, how that can be translated mathematically to the CFO to future cash flow. The other aspect that is really troubling is CFOs, business people in general, have no vocabulary to talk about customers and revenue generating objects. One of the biggest issues is that much of what we're talking about is assets. Customer equity and trust is an asset that does not show up on the balance sheet, and the Financial Accounting Standard Board won't let us do that. How can we get across the notion of assets? And the systems that deliver an experience are CapEx. They're assets too. So we got to start building business cases that articulate the asset aspects of this. And finally, obviously, KPIs. A third of organizations or more are starting to measure things like customer success, qualified leads, retention, cross-sell, usage, value delivery, a lot of the stuff Michael and Mohammed talked about. If those KPIs exist, it makes it a lot easier to start to build a quantifiable business case. So if you come to the event, you're going to meet a great roster speaker, including Michael and me and a number of other folks. But not only that, there's more. You get Ginsu knives. I'll be handing out copies of Nick Mehta's great book on digital customer success. I'll be doing a book signing for this fantastic book called Revenue Operations. And Michael and I will be giving a workshop on how organizations are starting to operationalize a lot of these moments that matter in the revenue cycle. So we take it from words and common sense and good habits to actually make it operational, systemic, and do things like balance digital automated interactions with human interactions. So I'm super excited to have everybody there. We have paper on a lot of what we're talking about here, but we have a few minutes left for questions. And again, I encourage everybody to come to this forum. It's going to be very important. Questions? Anyone? Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, I think there is one question which I like. If you could, one piece of advice, what would you think? I believe my advice is, when you look at the KPIs, think about that the most effective KPI is those that align with your organization strategic objectives while they are delivering measurable value to your customer that aligns with their business objectives. So the KPIs should align with your organization strategic objectives and the customer business objective. If you are able to deliver against those KPIs, you win the customer for longer.
So I agree with Mohammed on that. I'll build on it. The other thing that you have to do is make yourself relevant to your senior management. So when we set up our chief customer office, my boss scope was not to take on customer escalations, but he threw himself into them, big ones, very nasty ones. And I was fascinated that he did that. And I asked him, why did you do that? And he said, because it's going to be a moment that matters to the executives I'm dealing with, that I'm in the trenches with them, helping to turn around a client that's not going the way we want it to. And that is a really important thing, because I'm going to keep harping on metrics are great. I'm a metric guy. I'm very logical, but people live on emotion and that story. And being able to say, I was in the trenches with you 6 months ago and we did this together. Now I'm trying to do that at scale. That business case, that conversation is very different than someone just showing up out of the blue with a, hey, I have a good idea, right? So make sure as you think about your CS efforts that there's a connection upward, right? Not in a fake kind of way, but in a real way. Make your senior executives' lives easier, because that story will travel with them. It's a story they're going to tell at the dinner table with their families, right? And that's the story you want to have that says, oh, I can see the value not only in the macro, like Mohammed talked about, but in the micro.
Yep.
There's some more questions. You guys want to respond or pick one?
I'll pick another one. Sorry, Michael.
Please.
But there is another one says, do you see CS getting bigger, smaller, stay the same in the next 18 months? I believe it's gonna get bigger and bigger. More and more I see CEOs and CFOs are more interested in investing in CS practice within their organization. I see more and more CS practices that they are start to deliver more value to their organization and to their customers, and they are growing the business and increasing the retention. So I believe it's going to get bigger in the coming 18 months and way forward.
So I'm going to lean towards stay the same, get bigger. I think what will happen, I had a wonderful executive I worked with at Dell named Doug Schmidt, and he used to say, I might have the same number of people, but the work they're going to do is going to be more valuable. And I think what's going to happen is CX is going to get bigger, but we have to count differently than headcount, which is it's going to get bigger in the sense of relevance to our organizations and also the different ways we can deploy it, right? The 3 years ago, if I typed in the internet, tell me what a customer success manager does, I'd get a pretty generic same job description. If I do it now, it's different, right?
True.
Sometimes it's that hands-on thing that Mohammed's doing. Sometimes it's I'm in Gainsight or I'm in a tool like TurnZero or whatever, and I'm orchestrating things at a scale that's mind-boggling in terms of the number of people you're touching, right? And I think that to me is what's going to change in the next 18 months. I can't tell you it's going to be 10 times bigger or not, but I can see the relevancy in the organization getting much bigger and the toolkit getting bigger.
I'd love to just grab one of these questions. What's the most exciting thing that you're seeing in CX in the next 18 months? Gosh, so much of what we talked about today is exciting. But for me, I think it's the clarity people are getting on this balance between automation and human connection. And 2 points, Michael's point, AI is part of both answers because it frees up humans to do what they do best. It can alert you and identify this is hold my hand, Harry. This is a situation that requires a human touch and empathy. But really, what I like about it most is it's defining in empirical and scientific and measurable terms the value and role that humans and humanness create. The value of empathy, the value of relationship equity, the value of a thank you, and this whole notion of authenticity, when and where a human adds value. In an automated world, human customer service reps, CS reps, frontline BDRs and sellers are getting burned out. It's all bad news. It's a lot of rejection. It's a lot of people yelling at them. And to the degree that we can elevate them and put them in their sweet spot where there is empathy, recognition, there's a scientific term called reciprocal behavior, which means if you acknowledge them, your clients will reciprocate. There's a term called pro-social behavior, where if you express gratitude, they will then warm up. It's almost like alcohol at a party. It lubricates the socialization. So I know these are a lot of dynamics, but applying science to the humanness of selling, because humans are never going to go away. And I think this elevates them and puts them in their sweet spot. To me, I guess that is really what's exciting.
Interesting, yeah.
Well, I think we're nearly out of time. I want to thank my esteemed panelists. You guys are awesome. I'm just here for the ride. And again, the Strategy Institute is putting on one heck of a conference. Michael, and a lot of the speakers who are there, who are practitioners of this ilk, are really going to dig into some meaningful work. And I encourage you to get involved.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Michael.
You stole my words, Mohammed.
Now, you guys, I think you got some customers. You got some customers you got to deal with.
Yeah, please and thank you all day long. Every time you think that you haven't said please and thank you enough, say it more. It's amazing what it unlocks. And taking that moment to say, let me listen to what your problem is versus jumping to the answer is one of the secrets to success.